I don't know about you, but when I cook wings in the air fryer, I like for them to be juicy and I like for them to be crispy and I like for them to be delicious. And if you feel the same way too, then stay tuned for this guide where I'm going to provide you with 12 tips so that going forward, all of your air fried chicken wings will turn out juicy and delicious. Welcome to A Great Cooker. I'm Sophronia. Let's go ahead and get started. Any or all of these tips will definitely help you, but for sure, make sure you listen and tune in for number 3 because I think that is almost like the holy grail for juicy chicken wings. But let's begin with number 1. And my first tip is to cook thicker pieces of chicken first. With the wing pieces, you know how there's the flats and then there's the thick drumettes, I think they're called. Well, this is something that I don't know why, but I just figured this out recently. And that is after I preheat the air fryer, I take the drumettes and I place them in the basket first. And I let those cook anywhere from 2 to 3 minutes before I add in the flats. And the reason for that is because before I was cooking all the pieces together and the flats were drying out a bit before the before the bigger pieces had cooked through all the way. And for me, it's just easier to take everything out at the same time instead of what I was doing, which was trying to, as I was, checking the temperature of each and every single piece and pulling the ones that were already done, I was pulling those out early. But I found that by putting those thicker pieces in first, waiting a couple minutes and adding everything else, now I can pull all the wings out at the same time and they're all done and they're all hot together. Tip number 2 is to use a meat thermometer. And yeah, I have one right here. Anyone will do. I just cleaned that one. This is the kind that I use, but it's really easy and you just stick it in to your meat and see what temperature it is. I will be honest with you, I cooked for a very, very long time without one of these. And you might be that type of cook that you don't need to check the temperature of your food and you can just tell if it's done by looking at it. But I will say that if you don't want your wings to dry out, if you're having the problem of them drying out by just trying to look at them to gauge their doneness, then I would suggest getting a meat thermometer, and the temperature that you're looking for the wings to be done is 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, we can't always hit that mark, right? But I've found sometimes even if my wings get up to 175 or 180 degrees, as long as I pull them out pretty quickly after reaching that temperature, they're still going to be extremely juicy on the inside. So definitely make sure that you're keeping an eye on the temperature of your chicken while it's cooking. Okay, this is tip number 3. And like I said, this one I think makes all the difference. And that is to brine your chicken pieces, brine your wings before you cook it. Now, I know brining takes time. It's not always a possibility. And I definitely do sometimes cook my wings without brining them. But I'm telling you, it is a game changer. If you haven't tried it before, definitely give brining a try. Basically, the way that it works is that you need about 2 tablespoons of salt, I'm sorry, actually you need 1 tablespoon of salt for every 2 cups of water. And just for me, just for the few people that I cook for these days, I usually cook around 16 wings at a time. And usually about 4 cups of water is enough to cover the wing pieces. So I get some warm water, put it in a bowl, dissolve my 2 tablespoons of salt in there, and then add in the wings. And you can add in frozen wings, which is what I use. I buy my wings in bulk. So you can just put your frozen wings in there and then let them thaw and brine in a safe way. If you're going to be away from your kitchen, then of course you can just slide the wings in your fridge. If you're going to be able to keep a very close eye on the wings and be able to check back on them in an hour and an hour and a half, then I personally set the frozen wings in the brine solution on my counter, and I set a timer. And once they're thawed, then I transfer them to my fridge. And that's just so they can have as much time thawed and brining as possible. You can brine for as little as 30 minutes, but to me, I wouldn't, if I couldn't brine for a minimum of 3 or 4 hours, I'm not going to worry about it, because I don't think that under 3 or 4 hours is enough time for the salt to actually penetrate the meat. And you can go all the way up to 8 hours. And just know that if you go beyond 8 hours, then you may be taking a chance of your wings becoming too salty. So keep that in mind. Now, if you have your wings in a completely frozen state, in the water, in the fridge the entire time, I've left my wings in the fridge for up to 10 hours, because some of those hours the chicken was thawing and it wasn't really absorbing the salt. So it just depends on how much time you have. But I am telling you, if you have not tried brining your wings in any chicken, all chicken, it makes a huge difference. Tip number 4, I am telling this tip to myself as much as I am telling you, and that is to flip your wings halfway through. I tend to be a kind of lazy air fryer cooker, because I use my air fryer so much, and I don't always flip my food in there. I actually probably don't flip most of it, but I try to make an exception when it comes to wings. Because what will happen with the wings, if you don't fry them, or excuse me, if you don't flip them halfway through, they're going to have a tendency to dry out a bit on the top. Now they'll be really crispy on top, but they might dry out a bit, and then they're not going to be very crispy underneath. And you're going to be moist underneath there, and so then you may wind up with pieces that are, part dry and part not. So if you flip them halfway through, then you're going to get even cooking throughout. Tip number 5 is to find out the ideal cooking time to cook your wings in your air fryer. I have owned multiple air fryers over the years, and they've ranged in different sizes. But even when I bought ones that are the same size, they still heat up differently. One time I had an air fryer that only went up to 390 degrees. And so by default, that was the temperature that I used for my wings. I personally have found that in most of my air fryers, I've been able to use 400 degrees. And the wings cook pretty quickly that way. And as long as you pull them out in a timely fashion, 400 degrees is great. Now, again, that's been my experience with the different devices that I've had. But figure out your air fryer. It's just like with any appliance that you have in your kitchen. You have to use it and do some experimenting and just find out what temperatures work for what foods. But if you have the temperature too low with your wings and you're trying to cook them low and slow, you might actually be drying them out a bit by cooking them that way. So just something to keep in mind. Tip number 6 is to start checking your wings early. And this kind of ties back in with the temperature, just like you have to know what temperature to use. You need to figure out how long it takes for wings to cook without drying out in your air fryer. I've seen a lot of recipes that will tell you to cook your wings like between 20 and 25 minutes. And with my current air fryer, I tried that and my wings were dry. My air fryer cooks really fast. And so I start checking the wings at the 14-minute mark. And they're usually done. And if they're not done in 14 minutes, they're usually done no later than 16 minutes. But that's my air fryer presently. I have had ones in the past where it did take about 20 minutes for my wings to cook and, to get to 165 degrees and be juicy. So again, some experimentation with your device will help you figure out the ideal temperature for you. Oh yeah, number 10, tip number 10 is a really good one too. So make sure you stay tuned for that one. But let's talk about number 7. And that is to marinate your wings before cooking. Like I said, I think brining is ideal, but let's be honest, we don't always have time to brine because it is a lengthier process. Whereas marinating is for a shorter period of time. You can use some ingredients that can help lock in some of the moisture into the wings that you're going to cook. And marinade takes way less time than brining. You can do as little as 30 minutes and it'll help somewhat. But again, I feel like the longer you can let the wings marinate, the better turnout that you're going to have. If you have even just an hour or two will make a big difference. And like I said, depending on the ingredients that you use, it can help lock in moisture, which will lead to juicy wings. Tip number 8 is to lightly coat your wings with oil. I just use olive oil. You can use any kind of oil, really, but olive oil is my go-to. Also, if you have some refined coconut oil, I think that also works really well. That oil will help to seal the moisture in a bit while the chicken is cooking. And it's also it'll help the skin to crisp up on the outside. Like that crispy skin will help to keep the juiciness into your chicken to a certain extent. So what I do after I've done brining my chicken is I will pat the wings dry. I will oil them and then I add my spices. Tip number 9 is to thaw frozen wings properly. Now, let me tell you what I used to do all the time because I only had the time that I had. I would take the wings from frozen and I would put them in the air fryer and I would cook them from their frozen state. And trust me, this works. Air fryers are really good for cooking frozen food. And I'm serious, I did this for years. I would cook the wings for 10 minutes so they would thaw. Then I'd pull them out of the air fryer and then I'd oil them and season them and then actually cook them after that. This definitely works, but there is no brining, so that doesn't help with the moisture, locking in the moisture. And because I was using high heat to thaw the wings, that dried them out somewhat. So by the time I cooked them for real, even with watching the temperature, those wings always came out drier than the wings that I cooked that were thawed. Okay, number 10. This is a really good one. And this might be hard if you are impatient, like I am sometimes, but you want to let the wings rest after cooking. For years and years and years, I always would read in cookbooks, once you cook meat, let it rest so that the juices have a chance to redistribute throughout the meat. I read it, it sounded plausible, but honestly, I was just trying to get food cooked and get it on the table, and I wasn't trying to do all that. But it really does make a difference. The first time I ever really waited, cooked my wings, set them on a plate, and let them set up for like 5 to 7 minutes before I actually bit into them. Yes, I realized that that juice redistribution myth is not a myth at all. It is true. It really does work if you can take a few extra minutes and let the meat rest. Number 12 is to arrange the chicken pieces in a single file or in a single row. There's lots of foods that you can cook in your air fryer, and you can just kind of dump them in, and you just, shake the fryer partway through, like fries, for example, right? You can just dump those all in. Chicken nuggets, maybe not so much, but there are different foods that you can just dump it and shake it. But chicken wings are not one of those. Any raw meat that you cook in the air fryer, you're going to make sure that that's not bunched up together, and that it's not stacked. They're not stacked on top of each other, because what's going to happen is that it's going to elongate the cooking time. You're going to have to keep every few minutes moving the pieces around, so they're going to cook unevenly, and that will wind up in some pieces or some parts of pieces being dried out. So it's better to cook in batches. Like I said, I usually cook 16 wings, and I know that's a very exact number, but that's because I eat 6 wings and the other person I cook for eats 10. And so I just cook in those 2 batches. And here's a bonus one that I actually just thought of because of number 12. So here's the 13th tip. Not only do you not want to stack your pieces on top of each other, like we just talked about, you want to make sure that there is space in between each wing piece. So you don't want them right bumped up right next to each other. You want there to be some space. Okay, yes, I'm using my hands like they're pieces of chicken, like they're little chicken wings. So you don't want them bumped up together. You want there to be space in between each one. And that just allows for more even cooking. And again, the more even your cooking is, just the better chance you have of your wings turning out juicy, especially if you do a lot of the other steps in conjunction with this step. These are the things that I do in my kitchen when I cook my wings, or I try to do the majority of the time. And like I said, it does make a huge difference. I only have my own experience, so I'd love to know what it is that you do with your wings. If you have some type of tip that makes them really juicy, please put that in the comments, and that way we can all learn and we can all try your technique as well. And I want to thank you for watching. There's going to be another video that pops up. It'll pop up somewhere. Check that one out as well, and subscribe to this channel if you want more tips like this. I am here at A Great Cooker. I do mostly keto cooking, and I love using my small appliances like my air fryer, slow cooker, indoor grill, electric pressure cooker. I'm probably forgetting something, but that's what we do here. So make sure and subscribe if those are the types of recipes that you like to learn. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, I know I showed these before, so this is for the thumbnail. All right, y'all caught me again. This is not my plate, but someone in this house gets wings that they did not have to cook. So I feel like they'll be okay if I poach one off their plate and try it. Because we have to know if it's good or not, right? Okay, I probably should have waited and let this cool down a bit. But look at that. I'm going to use a fork, I think, to open this up so I don't burn myself. Okay, take a look at this. Look at that. See how juicy that is? Oh my gosh, there's literal juice dripping off of here that I don't want to wind up on myself. But can you see that, how juicy that is? And we checked the temperature on these. They're cooked all the way through. Let's see if I can taste it without burning myself. Mmm. The brining definitely worked. This tastes flavorful. The meat, it tastes flavorful all the way through. You know, when you don't brine your chicken, which I don't always brine mine, but to me, it always has a bland taste. And I can immediately tell if chicken's been brined or not. So if you have the extra time, you definitely want to go this route. Let me try the skin. Mm. Wow. That is so good. This was so juicy. I really could have left it in maybe whew, a couple minutes longer. I probably could have left it in a couple minutes longer for the skin to get a little crispier, but it is flavorful. Okay, just one more bite maybe. Yes, that's good. That Mexican chili powder, fantastic. This bit right here is for when we do the short. Okay, make these, brine them, give them a try. Let me know how they turned out. Okay, if you don't brine your chicken, it's not gonna look like this. And it's not gonna taste, it's still gonna be good if you season the outside of it, but it's not gonna have seasonings, or I should say flavor. It's not gonna have taste to it all the way through the chicken. So if you don't brine your chicken, and then you leave a comment and say, I made this and it doesn't taste very good at all, I'm gonna wonder if you actually did brine it or not. So definitely give the brining part a try if you can, and make this recipe. Let me know what you think. Also, let me know what ingredients you use, because I actually have days and days worth of different ways to season my wings. I'll make a video about that if you're interested. Speaking of videos, another video is gonna pop up here somewhere. Also, you'll have the ability to click and subscribe. So please do that if you enjoyed this video. I make lots of air fryer videos. They're all keto friendly nowadays, and they're all easy. Sometimes they seem like there's a lot of ingredients, but I promise you everything always comes together very quickly. I love having you in my kitchen and for us to be able to cook together. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.